Good evening. We find ourselves picking up where we left off last time. Looks like I actually have to launch my ship. I just got my 4th Octolith. I've got 4 weapons. And if memory serves, the most recent thing that I did was trip the security on that station. Yeah, I guess the thing to do now is to look for other stuff that I can do. The other hunters appear to be out and about. There are none on Vesper or on Arctera. I'm gonna go check out Arctera. It's not that I'm afraid of them, it's just that I don't have an excuse. Alright, I could perhaps try to get through here, now that I've got the, Imperialist. I'm basically on the lookout for doors that I can get through now that I couldn't get through before. And that one's literally bright red, so it stands out as a potential culprit. Now this might just lead back into this thing. There's gotta be a way out. Like, up on top of the ice. Like, is there another entrance to the room? I don't think there is. So there must be a way out of the ice from underneath the ice. Oh, Sylvivan, welcome. Always love to see a new face around here. Yes, Prime Hunters. Please forgive me if I'm not very good at it. I actually played Metroid Prime 1 and Metroid Prime 2 and then realized, wait, I missed one. This looks like it might be a way out. The funny thing is, I've been here before, but I couldn't, like, get myself to stay above the ice. Actually, what if I demorph once I'm up? Is that an option? I feel like it might not be. I'm trying to do a double bottom jump. It always takes me a minute to remember the timing. Thrilling gameplay. I feel like I'm just wasting time. But it is kind of satisfying to see her bounce. Oh, I actually had it that time too. Oh, you're Sylva? Gotcha. I had the thought, but I didn't want to assume. Yeah, I can definitely get up high, but like, does that accomplish anything? I remember seeing on your status that you were looking at getting back to streaming. I didn't even realize that you had fallen out of the habit. Maybe we can find joy in it once more. For me, it's definitely like the thing that keeps me sane. What if I go through here? Even that I can stand up in here, I feel like there's gotta be something that I can do in here. It's like... there just has to be a way to reach this door. I wonder if I can sneak around if I get over here again. Maybe that's what I've gotta do. You never played on an emulator before? Or this game, rather? Is this my first time playing? Yes, it is, very much so. Well, technically... technically, if you wanted to dispute that, you could say, oh, actually, this is my third time playing. Because I've had 2 sessions before this. And you can also say it's not my first time playing because when I was a kid, I would play the demo. But by all reasonable definitions, this is my first time playing. Alright, I'm gonna try going to that room called Subterranean and seeing if that gets me anything. You know, I'm quite enjoying this. It took like surprisingly less time than I thought it would to get used to controlling the game with a stylus. Like, I'm very much a keyboard and mouse first-person shooter player. But the stylus works surprisingly well. Sorry, you're welcome. This is the correct way, insofar as it's the way I wanted to go. As whether or not it gets me where I want to go, different matter entirely, potentially. I'm playing this on native platform with the video out. I am playing with an actual stylus. There are shenanigans afoot, because DS capture is kind of a pain. I would not describe this as unmodified native hardware, though. What if I can, like, drop down there and accomplish anything? Because, like, there was the Universal Ammo expansion up at the other side. Oh, the scan visor didn't detect anything. Okay, so... looks like I can drop down the middle here. I feel like I've done this already. Also, yeah, no, I am actually super impressed with this game. Like... especially factoring in that it's a DS game. Like, not even a 3DS game. This whole section looks like it could be cut away. I did come through here, but did I go down there? Basically what I'm trying to accomplish is I'm trying to figure out how to get over here to this red pit. And getting up above the ice from inside this room didn't seem to be working, so plan B was... what if I come all the way over here, and I try to check this out? Also, this antechamber doesn't have a name. Huh, none of these antechambers have names. Sick transit, bro. Maybe I can accomplish something in the ice hive? You know, like, I remember... like I say, playing the demo, and just... it was kind of crazy to me, just, like, the fact that, like... you could have, like, multiple people essentially playing multiplayer GameCube tier stuff on the DS. Like, I think that's probably the best way to put this. This doesn't feel like a cut-down version of a console game. This feels like a small version of a console game. It's like, this is just actually Metroid Prime on a different system that happens to be small. Imagine if they, like, made more games in this style with a higher budget. Yeah, I am currently in both the most entertaining and most infuriating part of any given Metroid game, where I haven't got the slightest idea where I'm going or what I'm doing. But figuring that out is the fun. Like, that red door surely is not unreachable, therefore, its existence is a hint that there's something here that I missed. Whether or not what's the word? Whether or not I can actually find it. Hey look, what's this thing? Well then, alright. So speaking of things that I clearly missed, how do I get down there again? Is that the ice hive? I do think that being able to travel between the planets is like a... I do think that it's cool. Oh, hello. I do think that, maybe there could be like a feature to like leave a planet quickly where like you get to a place with an open sky, and like your ship flies over and beams you up, kind of like Silex's does. You're gonna look. Have a wonderful day, or night. Have a wonderful time. Do you think this game looks better than Ocarina of Time 3D? Subjectively, that's probably because you like the art style better. Like, technologically it's not as advanced, but like, it's got like a stronger creative vision. It's like Ocarina of Time, I feel like, and I only vaguely like know the aesthetics of the 3D remakes. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask were like meant to be sort of like grittier 3D or grittier realistic titles. They were just held back by the technology of the time. And then to remaster it in a cartoony style kind of abandons that original vision. For better or for worse. Which it is, I don't have an opinion on. Also, I appear to be stuck in this room. I like dropped down from up there. How do I get back up? I feel like this is one of those moments where like I'm missing something incredibly obvious. Break this. I feel like if I could, I'd be able to scan it. Worth a shot anyway. With every passing moment, I feel more keenly that I'm having an aerial moment. Can I break this? Looks like I probably can. I have the right idea, just the wrong location. I like how neatly that's slotted in. That's probably the way back. So what's over here? Nothing. Glad we had this talk. Okay, now I gotta remember how to get back down to the basement. Which might just be this bit over here. Suddenly, Greebles. Artifact discovered. Okay, if I can find one more artifact on this planet, I can open the portal. I'm so close to opening portals on like 3 different planets now. I might be delusional, but I feel like, if I can get through that red door, which I kind of hope that this would accomplish, But I feel like if I can get through that red door, then I can probably get the last artifact on this planet. For a second I freaked out because I saw red. That's just... It's just my snoot. It's just my player indicator. Would I rather find the artifact for any tank at this point? I could go for either, really. I could have just like, no. It will remain sealed. I have to reconnect the power. Yeah, like straight up, I'm pretty sure that, like, at this point in the entire game, the strongest hint that I have to go off of is this solitary red door. I might be mistaken though, I might be able to find something else on another planet. But even if I found something else, I don't think that that would answer the question of how to get there. It's like blocking access to this door isn't like another door. It's just there's this room that doesn't seem to have any unaccounted for entrances. Wait, hold on. I might be dumb. Because that's an exit that you would leave as a morphball, so I don't need to get on top of the ice at all. Hold on. I think I just need to look a bit harder under the ice, rather than trying to find a way above it. I love the maps in these games. Okay, so I want to be looking, like, up top. I'm looking for a way to exit to the north. Oh my goodness, it was that simple all along, wasn't it? Or was it? Hello? Never mind. Well, that just raises more questions. I guess I either need to open that from the other side or find power bombs. Yeah, I did feel like I'd be getting power bombs. I'm pretty sure I only get the hunter weapons, and I'm pretty sure that the hunter weapons can't be used as a morph ball. So yeah. Alright then, I guess we'll just look for other stuff. We did find an artifact, which is nice. What if I go back to, what if I go back to Alanos? Could there maybe be something here that's nice? It also might not show up on the map, is another thing that I should be factoring in. I noticed that this has a big open thing at the back, now that I look at it. Olympic Cannon Control Room, I need the octoliths for that. Olympic Gardens. Thermal Vast, I never did finish exploring that. And it looks like there's actually tons here in the Alanos Perch that I should get to. Oh geez, there's so much stuff here actually, hold on. Is this the right area? Yes, it is. Okay, so just massive, huge area that I completely failed to notice, apparently. I can work with this. Ow. Ah, pistons. My only weakness. Actually, that's not true, it just felt like the thing to say in the moment. I'd say my actual weakness is more like people being mean to me. Oh, thank you for the head pats. I appreciate them. And I'm dead. You know, as far as quote-unquote last checkpoint goes, this could be worse. Also, thank you for the hydration. Hello. I can open that if I can find the relics. I don't actually remember which of these, like, icons is Alanos, but I presume it's the red one, so I gotta find 2 more if I want to open that portal. And that's where the Morphball thing is, so let's get back up there. Yeah, like kind of swinging back to, oh wow, this is actually just Metroid Prime on the DS. I always find it so inspiring when, like, people make an incredible game under constraints that seem unreasonable. It's like, wow, you really don't need, like, all the bells and whistles, you just need, like, passion and a strong vision. Like, the game definitely could have been better, but, like, it also could have been way, way worse. I'm in danger. Yeah, if only Nintendo actually left Metroid. Oh well. I really feel like this thing has checkpoint energy. I also find it kind of entertaining that Samus gets squished here, it's just instant death. Interesting and also moderately terrifying. Ugh. Yeah, moderately terrifying. I would self-diagnose that as like a moderately terrified. Ugh, nice. Alrighty. That looks green. I like how Samus refuses to unmorph here, presumably because she's aura farming. And give. Give, I say. Okay, I'm literally 2 out of 3 on 75% of the remaining planet things. And one of them is 0, so I haven't found it yet, question mark? Maybe that's the original space station that I started on. Okay, so that got me a thing. Hopefully I can find another artifact over here. That'd be nice. Either another artifact or like another weapon. I would not turn my nose up at another weapon. Unavailable. Alright. Is it okay if you talk about something you like in a different Metroidvania? As long as it's not like a spoiler. Go for it, I guess. Okay, I wanna get through a door that's up there. Alright. Is this a thing that I can scan? Not only is it a thing that I can scan, it's a thing that I can shoot. Samus kind of reminds me of a fox, in that foxes typically interact with the world around them by biting things. Like foxes are soft, curious biters. Meanwhile, Samus is a shooter. He's like, oh, is this food? And then she shoots it 37 times in the chest. You looked green, but I couldn't tell if you were a turret or an upgrade. Elysium Verge, guns are just guns, they didn't unlock anything. But they unlock different gameplay, kind of. And since combat was so integrated into the game, finding a new gun felt impactful even though it didn't directly unlock anything. That is kind of cool. To be fair, shotguns tend to be really, really good in just about any game. Assault expansion? Yes, please. Security system deactivated. Wonderful. Yeah, like whenever like the notion of a shotgun comes up, my mind always goes back to Halo 1. Where, by like a mile, the most powerful weapon combo in that game is the pistol that you start the game with, and the shotgun that you get like halfway through it. Granted, a lot of that does come down to the pistol being ridiculously OP, but like... still, shotgun good. That looks like my third relic. Or rather, the pass card to my third relic. The difference is academic. You know, the CE pistol was like as accurate as a sniper rifle and did as much damage as a rocket launcher. It was ridiculous. Portal active. It was also capable of headshots, so like... anything with a head and no shield that you could hit was just die instantly. Alright, in light of that recent expedition, is there anything that I've missed now? I don't think there is. Now, assuming that this is going to yield an octolith, which I feel is a reasonable assumption, while nice and important, I also can't help but notice that, like, it doesn't actually unlock anything for me, as far as I'm aware. Like, it's got to be done, it's just not gonna make it easier to get anything else done. But that's fine, I'll make do. I get the slight feeling that my energy tanks are kind of not keeping up with the level of threat that I'm expected to deal with. But it's not like I've not been looking, so I just have to keep looking. They are, in fact, hidden well. Honestly, I got so many missiles, I should just be using these. Like, what am I collecting upgrades for if not this? Granted, that's assuming I can hit my shots. Which I apparently can't take for granted. Wait, since when can I charge up missiles? Alright, that's really cool. I don't know if that's actually doing something. Like, maybe it's a super missile, or maybe it's just aura farming. But it makes thing go spinny. And thing go spinny is never bad. Oh, I'm almost out of missiles. Well, that was fun. Looks like these bubbles don't drop anything, so... I cannot rely on... Oh, hey, stop. I was gonna say I cannot rely on getting my stuff refilled. Looks like that's the eyes dropping stuff, though, not the bubbles. Also, I should scan this. Predicate V3, combining the features of its predecessors, this version of the cybernetic Predicate Tower features both precision chemical lasers and bursts of heat-seeking plasma. A central component of the Olympic military defense system, it was designed to safeguard the Olympics' most sacred objects. Oh, maybe I can't actually damage them while they're shooting. I feel like this is going slowly. I feel like this is going poorly. Luckily I did save my game. And there's a checkpoint. Maybe I should try... one or more of these. Like I saw with the eyes are red, maybe I shoot them with the Imperialist. Well, that doesn't appear to be working. Oh, looks like I don't need charge shots, I just need to hit them while they're vulnerable. Okay. It's like, wow, this thing seems really tanky. I'm learning. I'm so used to charge beaming everything that rapid firing actually being like the thing to do is kind of throwing me off. Like, it's never my first, spamming power beam shots is just never my plan A, you know? Okay, you know, I'm doing so much better this time. Close enough. Hopefully one more cycle puts it down. Did I rescan it? Yes, I did. Not that I particularly care about logbooks, but I did scan it. And it's dead. Octolith, gimme. I might have just accidentally skipped something important. Whoops. Evacuate within 5 minutes. There's like telepathic. I was like tapping the screen and it skipped through. Oh, what are you doing here? Actually, dumb question. He's trying to kill me. Like, I thought you weren't on this planet. Well, now he's definitely not on this planet. I think you're really about to get boss rushed. So I can go... Oh, yes, yes I am. If you want a DPS race, I'll give you a DPS race. I think this is the way out. I think I'm wrong. I think I'm almost right. Wait, is this the right way out? Or does that just take me back where I was? Oh, this would be so much easier if I could use the teleporter. It'd also be trivial if I could use the teleporter, but that's kind of what I'm, oh shoot. That's kind of what I'm in the market for right now. Is an escape with as little friction as possible. Honestly, I'm probably fine. Don't think my ship is too far from here. Yeah, bottom floor on the right by the looks of it. Yeah, bottom floor on the right. Shoot, these are sealed. I don't have presumably Silex's weapons, so I can't go through those fast. But that's fine. I hear ominous music, but I don't see any ominous people, so... Oh look, it's ominous people. And they're dead. Does anybody else want some? I've got plenty of power beam ammo. And I'm gone. Oh, that's one more octolith. Let's take off into space and then take a break. The question, maybe this is a kid? Well, as I just demonstrated, the game is actually quite easy. Anyway, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. I think that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. return. Sorry, just had to pick up the stylus. Fiddly little thing it is. It's been a minute since I've been to the archives. Perhaps I will find something of interest here. Did I ever check out that little chamber underneath the starting area? Also, I feel like this is likely to be where... Okay, I'm seeing a door that presumably I need Silas's weapon to open. So I presume that until I get that, I can't actually proceed further into this level. Did I ever check out what's down here? Oh, hello. Merely a capacity increase. I can't complain too much, but I can complain just a little. I wonder why the Guardians aren't shooting those guys. Like, you'd think that the Guardians would be, like, anti-everybody. Instead, they seem to be specifically anti-Samus. Fortunately, everything being anti-Samus doesn't really matter much when Samus is anti-everything. Yeah, I feel like I'm not gonna accomplish much here without Silas's weapon. But hey, more ammo and a bit of intel. Can't say no to that. I'm up to 200. Yeah, I am up to 250 universal ammo. That is a number that makes me happy. Okay, Vesper Defense Outpost. There's at least one artifact here that I've yet to claim. Stasis Bunker, I do see a door there that I apparently haven't been through. Whether or not it will lead anywhere interesting remains to be seen. But shouldn't be too difficult to check out. This still feels like something I should be able to interact with. Actually, if they're dropping so many missiles... Or maybe not? I do feel like I'm supposed to do something to this thing. It just looks very interactable. Oh, looks like there might be another door here that I haven't been through. That or more fall tunnels just don't count. No, I was just on the wrong level. Alright, hold on. When I ascend... I want to be stuck in this area. It may or may not be intentional, but like this whole area is giving me the vibe of like an Imperial base from Star Wars. And I've always really liked the Imperial aesthetic, so like, that's not a bad thing. Back when I played Star Wars Old Republic, I would always play the Empire faction. Okay, so there is a door there that I've not been through, and there's a door there that I've not been through. They're actually a bit lower than where I'm currently standing. So I need to find a way to go down like half a level. Somehow. You don't suppose these floor windows are breakable? Maybe? Maybe they are? Missiles don't seem to be doing the job. It's probably literally something like a hole in the ground that I just haven't noticed yet. Because there doesn't seem to be a... Hello? Reinforced tanks used to grow nanites from morphing ammunition and missiles. There doesn't seem to be a full level between the floor below this one and this one. So I get the impression that I should probably be using the morph ball somewhere to get somewhere. If only I had my booster pack from Prime 2. I could be like, wait, this place is exposed to space. Therefore, this is an environment without gravity. Therefore, I qualify to use my boosters. Actually, what if I do this? Never mind. I had the thought, like, wait, what if I send the elevator up and then jump down underneath it? That's not a thing here. Okay, wait, I'm currently on the zenith level that I want to be on. But then if I go through here, it counts me as being down. Okay, perhaps my map is just misleading me. I put all of that effort into having some level of spatial awareness, and this is how they repay me. You know, I literally just magically warped down somehow. Alright. I guess just this whole room on the map is placed in the wrong spot. A mundane, if slightly disappointing explanation. Well, I'm out of ideas for this area. The sheer quantity of things here makes me think that there's something going on here. Like, maybe it's just meant to, like, restock my stuff, but I really do feel like there's something going on here. What if I do this? I cannot do this. I think I just... Okay, so I'm reasonably certain that there's nothing in Vesper. Oh, whoops. I'm reasonably certain that there's nothing in Vesper. I'm pretty sure I just did the last of the stuff that was in, Alanos, I think the planet's called. Yep, I don't think that there's anything going on in Alanos. Can I, like, point my ship at something that's not actually listed on the map? Perhaps? Yeah, going off of process of elimination, because, like, I don't think I can do anything here without Silas's weapon. I think I've done everything here. can't think of anything else that I could do here. I never did find my way through that door here, so I think I need to actually try to work this out properly now. Because I don't think that there's anything else that I could do. It's like it's not listed on the map as like a barrier that requires a thing to get through. So maybe I just had like a really, really, really weird angle and just got wedged on it or something. Oh, or maybe this is another one of those like unmarked, you have to kill all the enemies in the room type things. Because there have been a few instances of that in this game where it's like I've been like poking through a room and then I just kill everything in it and then like a thing spawns out of nowhere. And now that I've said that out loud, I kind of suspect that that's exactly what's happening here. Let's try killing everything in this ice maze and see what happens. Like, without leaving it. That sure sounded like a noise. Hold on. Never mind, there's another one there. Oh, yeah, no, it was literally just I got stuck at a weird angle. Well, alright then. Progress, let's go. I see a universal ammo expansion. I very happily take that. Sanctoris, what a name. Do you have a weapon for me, Sanctoris? Greater Ithrak. The impenetrable hide on this cousin of the lesser Ithrak makes it a formidable threat. Anecdotal evidence suggests that frontal assault is ineffective against this aggressive predator. You having fun up there? Spectral lock 3 deactivated. And it's there. Looks like a renewable source of universal ammo. Spectral locks adjusting the optical spectrum may reveal the truth, so ow. Does that mean go into zoom? Yeah, gotta be far away from it. Do I have to bounce the shot off of a mirror or something? Actually, there are... Hello. Olympic War 1. The war lasted 3 standard galactic months. Even with the galaxy's most powerful technology at our disposal, we fell like dry grass beneath the blade. Goreya is a cancerous bloom that would wreak havoc across the universe. Gorea mimicked our cellular structure and replicated itself in solid form. Spectral Lock 1 deactivated. Spectral Lock 2 deactivated. Alright, works for me. Though I'm kind of assuming that this unlocks the boss portal. I'm kind of back in the same spot where it's like, okay, it's nice that I've made progress, but this doesn't help me unlock the stuff that I don't have. Portal activated. Oh no, one whole Guardian. Oh wait, no, there's two. The cutscene only showed one dropping down. I was like, did that Guardian legitimately just feel fear and try to get away from me? Nintendo DS and PC AI far smarter than any LLM. Let's go. Right, there's a boss portal there. Is there like an alternate boss portal somewhere? Yes, there is. There's one over here, and then there's one here. Never opened this door from this side. Then the boss portal, I think, is just over here. Yep. Though I can and should use my ship portal to restock and save my progress. Who knows, maybe this boss will drop Silas's weapon. I can't confirm it won't happen. Something else that's kind of like on my mind are those artifacts that I found that were like, those are just like, this one allows a portal to lock on to special coordinates, and this one allows a thing to disassemble you. Like, I'm not sure if those were like different artifacts that I just forgot, or if it's the same artifacts and I just stopped scanning them at a certain point. Another pillar. Oh shoot, this one can move. Consider me right proper intimidated. Codified V4, the apex of the credited line of cybernetic defenses, the ultimate model deploys lethal lasers and homing plasma from a mobile tower whose very casing is an offensive weapon. A key component of military defense technology, it was designed to succeed where all others fail. Well, hopefully it doesn't succeed at teaching me a lesson. Normally the stylus movement controls aren't too bad, but specifically when trying to circle strafe, it's kind of hard to keep up. But I'll make it work. This tower seems particularly tanky. Like it seems to end its vulnerable phases after taking less damage than other ones. Hello there. Like, maybe I should just be, like, using a different weapon to capitalize better? Oh, just gotta keep blasting. Eventually I'll either win or die. Also, I can see why you originally said that I would not have a good time with this game if I didn't have decent aim. Fortunately, I would describe my aim as at least decent, so... Ow. My poor melting bones. But I must remain in this thing's line of fire if I wish to keep it in my line of fire. Yeah, I miss a fair number of shots. I think it's... I think it would perhaps be a bit pretentious to say that my aim's really, really good. Ow. Oh, I really hope I don't just... I hope after all this I don't lose to chip damage of all things. Oh, desist, stop. My hand is cramping a little bit. It's kind of like a writer's cramp because I'm holding a pen-like object. And have been for like the last 2 hours straight in a relatively firm grip. Granted, this is, presumably, as a result, decent training for if I ever want to, like, draw for an extended period of time. Oh no, 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 not like this, not like this. Please, give me... Sad Fox. If only I had one more E-Tank. The thing is, I'm not sure what I could be doing better, because it goes for so long without being capable of taking damage. I might just have to deal with it. Or maybe there's like a clever way to deal with it that I just haven't intuited. Like, I see that its beams are green. Like, what if it's like vulnerable to this? No gimmicks? Gotcha. In light of that... Okay, and using missiles, I think, is the play there, when I get a vulnerable phase. I want to maximize the damage that I'm dealing. If you want to win the race, just accelerate. It's vulnerable so infrequently that I think I just need to keep blasting and hope that it makes itself vulnerable when a bullet is hitting it, rather than trying to time my shots with it becoming vulnerable. Yes. Think. Ow. Okay, now it's back to taking vanishingly little damage. I did like half the health bar in the first cycle, and I just haven't been able to replicate the feat. I legit am wondering if there's like some Mega Man stuff going on that I'm just not parsing. Like, oh, as you can see, these are green, therefore you used like the blue weapon and it messes them up. Stuff like that. Ow. Ow. Look it up as the boss's name. The boss's name is Credited V4. You could also presumably like look up a list of bosses in Metroid Prime Hunters, and it'd be like a very, very short list. Charles, welcome. I'm currently fighting Credipid V4. And it's giving me a fight, mostly by virtue of having way more health than me. But I am undaunted. But my hand is cramping, something awful. Bosses take either half or double damage from different weapons. That is a gimmick. That is very much a gimmick. This was a boss from an ice planet, so presumably the fire weapon does more damage to it. I wish I could shoot those balls down. You've already tried a super effective weapon for it? Which one was that? This house? But like I tried that a few more times and it didn't accomplish anything. It just instantly went back into the thing. Also, please drop some energy. I'm so very hungry. Close enough. Let's go. And it's dead. I am kind of starting to believe that this game just doesn't have any other energy tanks. But here we are. I am once again in the position of technically having made progress, but not in a way that actually, like, unlocks anything. Lost, we are all. Yeah, there's just the, there's just the, like the outpost left. I think that there's one there. Oh shit, where do I go? Not that way. Profoundly not that way. Also not that way. Where's my stuff? Wait, where's my stuff? Oh, this is where my ship is. I was like, am I blind? Go this way. Oh, you. You're like the worst one I could have encountered. Perish regardless. Alright, that wasn't too bad. Yeah, he was kind of intimidating on my first encounter with him, but like... now that I know how much of a chump Silas is, I know that he'll never be a threat in any other Metroid Prime game. Yeah, let's go. I am genuinely at a loss as to where I might want to go next. Like, a vague notion of the outpost, and like, that's it. Like, there are no enemies here, which makes me think that it's kind of like a... not in a refighting state, so to speak. How many artifacts do I have now? 6. If I had 8, I could beat the game. I have 4 weapons and 6 artifacts. Or do you mean like for this particular space station? 2. Did I ever find anything up here in that, like, upper-looking bit in the Cortex CPU? Doing things out of order? I am doing things in the order that I find them. It doesn't surprise me that I accidentally sequence broke at some point, though. That sounds like something I would do. Actually, I think maybe I did find the thing that was here? Or did I? I definitely recall passing through this room and getting an upgrade, but I don't know if I actually, like, went off to the attached area. You know, I've definitely been here. This is where I got the battle hammer, I want to say it was. It was worth the shots. Maybe I should be looking for more areas that are like slightly out of the way but not necessarily delineated by doors that may or may not contain weapons that I don't have. Then again, the only thing that I don't have that would really be useful for me at this point in time is Silas's weapon. It's like the only door type that I can of that I have access to but haven't been through is the yellow door. Or rather, that I can physically reach but not get through is the yellow door. Don't bother looking it up right now, because we're so close to the end of stream anyway. Maybe next week if I haven't found it by then. Watch it just be this thing if I kill these things. Why not? Alright, so I've been through there. I want to check it out again anyway. Because I definitely full cleared this area, and then I did the boss fight that was here. And then this is where I did the whole thing to get all this stuff, so presumably the other artifact would be more along these lines. Which again, even if I find the other artifact, that's just an octolith, it doesn't actually open doors. But I guess that is one less thing to look for if I do find it. Yeah, I want to get back into that morph ball area. I have vague... Oh, hello. I was gonna say, I've got vague memory of this place. Yeah, I feel like I was supposed to find this much earlier than I ended up finding it. Oh well, better late than never. Central first floor force field unlocked. First floor column force fields unlocked. I've basically been in the presence of that thing before as well. To defend our territories from extraterrestrial attack, we deployed lethal bioweaponry. If you are reading this message, our plan to contain Goria was a success. Honor our sacrifice and do not seek this thing. Only harm can come from such a course. I mean, it sounds like they've stored away some kind of ultimate power that they just want to keep away from me. I better pop the lid on this can. We were peaceful people, but we defended our homeworld with a fierce determination. Sounds like self-justification to me. How do I get down there again? Through the morph ball area, that's how. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, hi there. Give. Hello there. Okay, so the different portals just have different flavor text on them. Or the different artifacts, rather. Ooh, Guardian. I like I was trying to shoot me in a cutscene. Our enlarged forebrains facilitated enhanced cognitive function. It was our ability to think quickly that saved us from early and violent extinction. It's too late, Korea. They've already drawn a meme with them as the Chad and you as the Soy Jack. Well, that was rude. I don't see a portal nearby, so I'll just send it. So yeah, this is gonna be my 7th relic, and I'm still missing 2 weapons. Hopefully I have an easier time with this boss than the last one. Oh no, it's another pillar. This was only V2. Burst of heat-seeking plasma. Yeah, just straight downgrade. Yeah, straight downgrade by the sounds of it. I definitely feel like I prefer the Slench. Like, both in terms of, like, how it restores your health, and in terms of just... I think it's a more fun fight. But I also respect this one for trying to do something unique. I also just think that Slench is a funnier name. It's very satisfying to say Slench. I mean, is this really a sequence break so much as just doing things outside of the intended order? Like, I didn't really sequence break, I just got the weapon and then didn't find the thing I was meant to use it on first. Like, I feel like it'd be more of a sequence break if I, like, somehow got in here without finding the weapon at all. Hopefully one more cycle. Ugh. Rude, get back out here. Let me kill you. Like that, yes, please and thank you. And yoink. Yeah, I think at this point I just need to find Silex's weapon. I'm also not entirely sure what the last weapon even is. Like, I don't think I've encountered any doors that require it. End was upon us all. So yeah, I guess next stream for this game is literally just gonna be looking for Silex's weapon. In light of which, it would spoil the fun to look up where it is. Okay, I'm gonna go here. That's not difficult at all, actually. You did look at the planet? No, don't tell me. I don't want any spoilers. Like, if I am well and truly stuck, I'll ask, but aside from that, I want to find it. I want to do it right. That wasn't too bad at all. Let's see if there's anything in space. Like maybe a penultimate area appears now that I've got 7 octoliths. Appears not. Okay, so if I go off of my hypothesis that enemies appear on planets that are not containing progression, it feels like I should be going to the Celestial Archives. So that's probably where I'll start next stream. Don't tell me if I'm right or not, though. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Sunday. The game is going to be Pikmin 2. We're kind of in the post-game. I'm just still having fun with the game, and there's still treasures to find, so... And then the next time I'm going to be playing this game in particular is going to be on Monday. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I hope to see you again. Good night.